think Advani sir, we can hear you.
Yeah, can you listen? Hear me?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, good evening. First of all, I'm really very much obliged to the organizers for giving me this opportunity to chair on an important session on the newer approaches in the HER2 positive breast cancer. As all of us know that the Herceptin has radically changed the outlook in the HER2 positive breast cancer. And more so, the newer agents like Perjecta has further improvised the outcome, particularly in the neoadjuvant fashion. So today we are going to really listen to the experts to how to manage the HER2 positive breast cancer in neoadjuvant situation. Over to the speaker.
Thank you, Advani sir, for your remarks. I would like to call upon Bowman Dabur sir for his talk on the topic of role of Perjeta in HER2 positive first line metastatic breast cancer. Bowman Dabur sir.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks for the invitation and thankful to Roche and the ICON for giving me this opportunity. And I'll share my slides. Can I share the screen? Yeah. Can you see the slides? Can you see my slides?
Yes, sir, your slides are visible.
Okay. Let's start. So today what I'll be speaking to you is the role of pertuzumab in HER2 positive metastatic breast cancer. We know that all HER2 positive breast tumors are aggressive breast cancers. They have a higher disease recurrence, they have a higher metastatic potential, they have a shortened survival, the tumor develops very rapidly, have a high nuclear grade. Lobular carcinomas have much less HER2 expression, but if there is an HER2 expression, it continues to be of a poor prognosis.
Common, sir, sorry to interrupt. Sir, request
Yeah.
you to please full screen, sir.
Please, sorry.
Sir, request you to please full screen, sir.
Okay, full screen, just one
Yes,
second.
sir.
And is it fine?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
So way back, Sleman et al. In 1987 showed that those patients who had HER2 gene amplification had a decreased progression-free survival and overall survival. And in fact, he also showed that there was reduced responses to standard chemotherapy. But again, in this next publication in 2001 in NEJM, when trastuzumab was added to chemotherapy, he showed an improvement of a median overall survival and improvement of approximately 5 months. So the whole scene changed with the addition of trastuzumab in HER2 positive breast cancer. This was way back shown in 2001 by Sleman et al. But of course, we know there is still an unmet need because 50% of the patients in whom we use trastuzumab upfront would progress after 1 year. So in a metastatic breast cancer or in any metastatic disease, two important components of our treatment are it should be efficacious and it should be safe also. So this is a regular algorithm in HER2 positive metastatic breast cancer. If the patient has received anti-HER2 therapy and the disease has recurred within 6 months of therapy, one would consider using TDM1 upfront. And second line, it is anti-HER2 agent plus or minus chemotherapy. Whereas if the disease recurrence has occurred after 6 months, we use trastuzumab plus pertuzumab plus taxane. And why we do so, I will show in my subsequent slides. And on first relapse, it's TDM1. And in the third line, depending on the clinician, anti-HER2 agent plus or minus chemotherapy. And these are the standard guidelines, as you can see, AGO, NCCN, and so forth. Now, why trastuzumab and pertuzumab have a synergistic effect. I'll show you in this slide that trastuzumab binds to the subdomain 4 and inhibits the downstream signaling, whereas pertuzumab binds to specific domain 2 and inhibits the ligand activation, that is heterodimerization. And it believed that heterodimerization is one of the very potent downstream signaling. And hence, this is one of the best ways to block the HER2 pathway by the synergistic effect of trastuzumab and pertuzumab. So let us now come to Cleopatra trial. That is clinical evaluation of pertuzumab and trastuzumab. This was a very straightforward study. As you can see, first-line metastatic HER2 positive breast cancer who had not received any therapy for metastatic breast cancer. They were naive from metastatic breast cancer. And it was a large study of 800 patients, 1:1 randomization to trastuzumab docetaxel plus placebo or trastuzumab docetaxel plus Perjeta or pertuzumab. And the primary endpoint was independently assessed PFS, and the secondary endpoints are as mentioned. It met its primary endpoint that there was a gross improvement in PFS by an independently assessed committee, and you can see the improvement was in the tune of 6.1 months longer when pertuzumab was added to trastuzumab and chemotherapy docetaxel. Even if we see in the final analysis, overall survival was 15.7 months better by adding pertuzumab to trastuzumab and docetaxel. Next slide, it's not coming, sorry. There's some hitch here. This is what I showed you, the overall survival improvement of 15.7 months. So was in the final analysis, there was a gross improvement in PFS also. The PFS improvement was in the tune of 6.3 months better when adding pertuzumab to trastuzumab and hazard ratio of 0.68. And a very long follow-up, that is 8 years of follow-up, still the overall survival benefit persisted when we added pertuzumab. It was 37% versus 23%. And so was the benefit in PFS. As you can see here, the hazard ratio was still 0.69. And by adding pertuzumab to trastuzumab and docetaxel, it was 18.7 versus 12.4 months. Now coming to overall response rates, as we see here, approximately 80% responses by adding pertuzumab, and that is a difference of 10.8% better than the control arm, that was trastuzumab plus docetaxel. Coming to duration of response, it was 20.2 months by adding pertuzumab, that is 7.7 months better than the study arm of placebo plus trastuzumab plus docetaxel. Now coming to subgroup analysis, how did Perjeta maintain its benefit in patients with hormone status prior treatment with trastuzumab, site of metastasis, CNS, and age subgroup? We'll rapidly run through it. By adding Perjeta, let it be ER positive or PR positive or negative, the benefit with pertuzumab addition persisted. You can see in this. And this benefit was really because of the addition of pertuzumab, because no concurrent hormonal therapy was allowed till there was disease progression. Regardless of the use of prior trastuzumab in adjuvant or neoadjuvant setup, you can see here with trastuzumab or those patients who had not received, the hazard ratio remained continuously 0.6, 0.68 in the overall survival as well as in the PFS, whatever, if we had used trastuzumab or pertuzumab. If we had used trastuzumab in the prior setup, that is in the adjuvant or neoadjuvant setup. The hazard ratio as regards PFS and overall survival was much better by adding pertuzumab, irrespective of prior use of trastuzumab in the adjuvant or neoadjuvant setup. Now, if you see, we know all our HER2 patients have a very high incidence of CNS disease. And of course, now we have much better drugs for controlling the CNS disease in patients who have HER2 positive breast cancer. But here, pertuzumab also did its job by better control of the disease in the CNS as the site of first progression. If you can see, it was 15 months when pertuzumab was added compared to 11.9 months, and it was a good hazard ratio of 0.58. So pertuzumab also could control the CNS disease better than just giving trastuzumab and docetaxel. Regardless of age, you can see less than 65 or more than 65, the benefit of pertuzumab persisted as regards PFS. In fact, it appears slightly better of 0.5 to hazard ratio in patients who were above 65 years. So was the due of the objective response rates. Let it be a patient less than 65 or above 65. The response rates, the objective response rates were quite good. In fact, here also you can see it was marginally better. Now coming to whether pertuzumab required dose adjustment as regards docetaxel, what is the overall safety and what is the cardiac safety? So if you can see here, the toxicity of our interest when we add pertuzumab is mainly cardiac toxicity. And here you can see the symptomatic left ventricular dysfunction or grade 3 or grade 3 left ventricular dysfunction or congestive heart failure, all LVF, whatever. Pertuzumab, when it was added, did not increase at all. These cardiac side events remained the same with the addition of pertuzumab or compared to trastuzumab. However, as you can see, diarrhea and rash were marginally more with pertuzumab than with trastuzumab. If we see, if by adding pertuzumab, do we have to modify the dose of docetaxel? No. You can see here the dose reductions were equal if you had pertuzumab plus trastuzumab plus docetaxel, or in the trastuzumab plus docetaxel group. The dose modification of docetaxel was not required because of addition of pertuzumab. When pertuzumab was given along with docetaxel, we did see side effects. Diarrhea was one of the main, as I told you earlier. Diarrhea, alopecia, neutropenia. However, febrile neutropenia was less than 15%. Let it be age above 65 or below 65. But when trastuzumab plus pertuzumab was only continued without docetaxel, as you can see, the adverse events significantly dropped down. And the main adverse effect which persisted was diarrhea, which occurred approximately 1/3 of the patient when trastuzumab plus pertuzumab was continued. So because of this, now pertuzumab is come in all major guidelines, as you can see, that be NCCN, ASCO, NICE, ESMO, or what we see is the magnitude of clinical benefit scale. Here, pertuzumab is on the one of the very high orders of 4, just below TDM1. So to conclude, we saw a significant overall survival improvement with pertuzumab, adding pertuzumab to trastuzumab and docetaxel compared with only trastuzumab and docetaxel in first-line metastatic breast cancer. And the final overall survival benefit persisted even after 8 years of follow-up. So was the improvement in PFS at such a long follow-up. The hazard ratio was 0.69, and the adverse event of interest, the cardiac problems, were not additional by adding Perjeta. We saw diarrhea and rash were very common when addition of pertuzumab. Long-term cardiac safety, as I told you, did not deteriorate by adding Perjeta. And we have one of the longest follow-up in first-line metastatic HER2-positive breast cancer. And this is why trastuzumab plus pertuzumab plus docetaxel remains a standard of care in patients who are HER2-positive as first-line metastatic breast cancer patients. Thank you very much for your patient hearing.
Thank you, Bowman sir, for that elaborate presentation on Perjeta in the HER2-positive first-line MBC setting. With this, we come on to the next topic, which is the case-based discussion, for which I would like to call upon our moderator for this session, Dr. Shruti Kate, a medical oncologist from Nasik. We have the panelists for this session, Dr. Ravi Vategaonkar from Pune,
Thank you so much, Tushar sir. And after a very lucid presentation by Dr. Bowman, like always, we head to the case-based panel discussion. So the idea of this panel discussion is to have the insights of a very elite group of medical oncologists in treating this very critical cohort of our patients, HER2-positive metastatic CA breast. There are 7 panelists with me, and Dr. Reshma Puranik, Dr. Ravi Vategaonkar sir, and Dr. Ashwin are going to join us here physically. And Dr. Preetam Kataria, Dr. Shivam Singhal, and Dr. Nilesh Dhamne is going to join us virtually. I welcome you all, sir. So not very long ago, when I was a DM resident in Tata, I had prepared the first Cadzilla for Sudeep sir's patient. And at that time, it was not available in the clinics. And the patient's daughter was based in US. With her help and through proper channel, we got it imported and we had given it. So not very many years from then, we have many drugs not available, and now the debate is what is the ideal sequence. So let us begin. My disclosure is that these cases have been prepared by the Roche team. The first case, 40-year-old lady presented with severe backache. I'm so sorry. Dr. Chetan Deshmukh is also available. I'm so sorry, sir. I missed your name. He is available virtually with us. So sorry. So, a 40-year-old lady presented with severe backache. She was found to have a locally advanced breast cancer with extensive bone metastasis and lung metastasis. It was clinically T4D N3M1, and the breast biopsy revealed an infiltrative ductal carcinoma grade 3, ER positive, PR positive, HER2 3 positive. So let me begin with Dr. Preetam. Are we going
Yeah,
to
hi, ma'am.
see them on the screen? So Dr. Preetam, yes.
Yeah, hello, ma'am. Hi.
Hi, Preetam. Do you want any more information before you plan this patient? She is currently ECOG 3 due to her very severe backache, but prior to this, she was ECOG 1. Do you
So,
need any more investigations? Yes, please, sorry, continue.
Yeah. So first we look at look at the PET scan report. I believe the PET scan must have been done, and just to understand the extent of the disease. Then before planning, I will look at the blood test and the 2D echo report, because patient is HER2 positive. Because if I'm planning for trastuzumab based treatment, I will have to look at a 2D echo report. And because patient is in Western crisis sort of, and if there's a pain and everything, I would plan for some form of chemotherapy in the form of taxanes and trastuzumab. Thus, if affordability is not an issue, then pertuzumab to begin with, and in the first cycle, and with a zoledronic acid.
Okay, so a review of PET scan, a 2D echo which was done was normal. So do you do MRI brain for these patients to look for brain metastasis, Ravi sir? Do you routinely do MRI brain if this patient is HER2 positive, metastatic? Do you want to see if she has brain mets?
If patient has symptoms of brain metastasis, then definitely I will do. But if patient is asymptomatic, then without MRI brain, I will continue with. But before that, actually, I would like to add a bone modifying agent, zoledronic acid or denosumab, and I will start with trastuzumab and docetaxel. And if patient is affording, then pertuzumab.
Yes. So these patients are at high risk for developing brain mets. But as of now, the guidelines do not suggest screening asymptomatic patients for development of brain mets. So depending on what is the hormonal status, ECOG, PS, age, there are certain groups of patients who are at higher risk of developing CNS metastasis. And that has to be addressed in the form of the treatment that you're planning, so that you delay the onset of CNS metastasis for a patient who is not having brain mets. So let me ask Reshma. what is your preferred line in your clinic?
Ma'am, the preferred line in my clinic is definitely a taxane along with trastuzumab. Mostly that is the regimen I use in metastatic setting.
Not
the
the,
patient-
not the one that you're frequently using, but what is your preferred?
Yes, ma'am. As per the guidelines, it is THP, the first one,
Okay,
THP.
okay,
If affording, yes.
okay. So for this discussion, we'll assume that our patient is very much affordable and she needs the best treatment. So you are planning THP.
Yes.
Dr. Ashwin, what is your take on that?
I'm THP. Patient is
THP.
up.
So you have changed your practice
No, ma'am.
after Cleopatra?
Yes, definitely.
Okay,
So,
okay. So she had an excellent response to.
A part of the, just ASCO 2021 has given one of the home taking message. If somebody hormonal positive, HER2 positive metastatic breast, as you say, PS is 3. I just want everyone, like, they have given, like, you can start with AI plus HER2 positive agent, any.
Yes.
Now, she is not in visceral crisis, though the disease looks extensive, lung, bone. I don't know if PS3, if anybody any has changed the practice since ASCO 2021. I may not opt, but anyone wants to say
So
AI plus dual HER2 or single HER2.
correct. So you're talking about the PERTAIN study and we'll come to that. But the Cleopatra study clearly tells us that irrespective of the hormonal status, the benefit is with chemotherapy, with dual agent.
PS3.
Yes. So currently she is PS3 because of pain and I'm sure many elite medical oncologists here have seen excellent response to THP and how the PS improves. So Chetan sir, what is your treatment of choice and what is your experience with THP?
I believe the PS3 is because of the pain and not because of any
Correct,
formulated
correct.
crisis. And the disease in a very aggressive manner. It is definitely best for young lady. I would definitely prefer the best combination seems to be with dual HER2 loss with trastuzumab and or pertuzumab.
I think I was not very, it's not, sir, can you move to a place with better audibility, sir? We are unable to hear you clearly, Chetan, sir. So this patient was started on THP. She had an excellent response. And after 36 cycle, around 27 months, she complained of breast pain. After 38 cycle, she had some blurring of vision. And on MRI at that point, she had extensive leptomeningeal and brain metastasis. So I would want to know from Dr. Nilesh here, how often you encounter early versus late progression after THP regime, or in other words, what is your experience with THP regime? Dr. Nilesh.
Yeah, the experience been excellent. The patient really do like this patient. Generally, the median PF is they achieve up to the tune of 2.5 to 3 years. And late progression are that what we see. Early progression are rare with THP regimen, especially somebody ERPR negative and HER2 positive. Definitely they respond better to anti-HER2 contrast to hormonal positive, I would say. So we encounter in a routine practice more of a late progression.
Okay. Dr. Shivam Singla, do you see any reasons for early progression? Have you encountered any early progression on this dual anti-HER2 with taxane?
Ma'am, I think addition of pertuzumab definitely delays the CNS progression, and Dr. Bowman also showed that in Cleopatra trial as one of the findings. So in my practice, we do get late progressions, but not very early progressions. Majority of the patients do well on the THP regimen.
So these are the curves that all medical oncologists are very proud of. And whenever there's a surgeon who is boasting about a study result, this is what is given in his face. So significantly prolonged PFS with dual HER2 and a final OS difference of 15.7 months. The 8-year overall survival was around 37%. So these are the previous studies that were there, and of course there's an unprecedented result. So let me start here with Reshma. What is your, do you see any other reasons when you're choosing Perjeta for your patient? Like this was an upfront patient. So do you see, supposing the patient is already an early breast cancer patient, do you see any other criteria when you were choosing your regime and the backbone of chemo?
Ma'am, with the data which Cleopatra has shown, would definitely like to keep Perjeta in the first line. The only thing which I would like to be sure of is the cardiac status of the patient. Otherwise, the regimen THP is well tolerated, except for some more neutropenias. So I would like to see the cardiac status and would definitely want to incorporate Perjeta in the first line.
Dr. Chetan, do you see any cardiac issues with using dual anti-HER2 as per the data?
Very often, but honestly, our use of pertuzumab is not so high as is trastuzumab. Over a period of time, once we start using it more often, we'll probably end up seeing a little more cardiotoxicity. But as of now, I don't think we've had any extra issues with pertuzumab.
Okay, so as per the 8-year OS results, there are no concerns about increasing cardiotoxicity, but I take your point. For a pre-treated patient who has already received trastuzumab and has some decline in cardiac function, it would be an issue that is going to come up. So how do you plan monitoring the cardiac status? Ashwin, Dr. Ashwin?
So similar to what we do in trastuzumab, every 3 monthly, we definitely advise them to do echo.
Yeah.
And if there is a decrease in ejection fraction, maybe more than 10%, then we withhold the drug, and we keep on doing frequent 2D echoes. And once it reverses back, we again rechallenge with both the HER2 blockade agents.
Yeah. So these are metastatic patients, and around 40% are going to live till 8 years. So how frequently you want to do your 2D echo?
3 months.
Every 3 months?
Yes.
So as per guidelines, it is indicated, it's advised that you do it every 3 months for the first year for the metastatic patients, and even on dual HER2 maintenance, you can do it every 6 months in the subsequent years.
Sure, it's RSS guidelines.
Yes.
Continue, that's what they say, continue to 3 months.
Ma'am said it is in the first year.
Relax.
During treatment,
In the second year onwards. So I would just want to share my experience on using Perjeta, like a very similar patient who was treated in HCG Nashik. She was very symptomatic for pain and PS3. In the second cycle, I couldn't recognize her. Her PS had improved, and in the third cycle, her PS was better than me on that day. So a dramatic improvement. And once the chemotherapy is over, you continue with the maintenance dual HER2. And like Dr. Nilesh was mentioning, the PERTAIN study, here again, it is advised that you give chemotherapy along with dual HER2 and then add the AI or the hormonal treatment that you want to with the maintenance HER2 treatment. So that is the data that is available and was presented in ASCO. So coming to case 2, another interesting case, 58-year-old lady, cardiac nurse, very early tumor, triple positive, but she was a cardiac nurse and she declined trastuzumab owing to the fear of congestive heart failure. She received 4 cycles of doxorubicin cyclophosphamide, underwent breast reconstruction, and then received tamoxifen for 10 years. So while she was on her scheduled follow-up visit, not very symptomatic, not at all symptomatic, her laboratory studies revealed a normal CBC-CEA as well as elevated levels of cholesterol, TSH, AST, and a CT abdomen revealed some lesions in the liver. So what would be your next step here? Dr. Shivam, would you like to take this? It's
Yeah.
10 years post her
So
treatment.
she's a late relapser. I think in this patient, if she's not in any visceral crisis, I can offer her Patain trial. I can offer her letrozole plus pertuzumab and trastuzumab combination, because we've seen that the PFS was about 18.9 months with Patain trial, and these were the patients, majority of them, who were pre-treated with chemotherapy. And this is what my practice would be. She's asymptomatic. Why give her chemotherapy?
So you think you can convince her now to take trastuzumab or dual trastuzumab? I think that's what you're saying.
Yes, ma'am, I think I can. If she's not willing, then other options like, tucatinib, I don't know, they're not even allowed post without any HER2. So I think I will have to put my effort to convince.
And do you want to do any other, I mean, did he mention that he wants to do a biopsy? I missed that, sorry.
Yeah, that biopsy followed by, because I cannot read, it was too small. So I was trying to.
So a biopsy and an ERPR HER2 status to confirm her triple positive status and then treatment. So this patient's liver lesions were triple positive, consistent with breast carcinoma. So here, which of the following is the best regimen for management of this patient? Dr. Ravi, do you want to take this?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, she has bilobar liver metastasis, so I would start with chemotherapy along with trastuzumab and pertuzumab.
Okay. And do you see any other, especially for these patients? So there is a gap of 10 years. If that is not there, or do you want to clarify to the audience here, what is your take on using the HER2 therapy depending upon what therapy patient has received previously? Now, many patients now receive trastuzumab, pertuzumab in the neoadjuvant setting, and if they have a residual disease, they would receive TDM1 in the ideal setting.
Yes.
So what calculations do you do?
Yes, ma'am. If patient has received neoadjuvant or adjuvant trastuzumab or trastuzumab with pertuzumab, and with early relapse, I would go for TDM1.
How early?
6 months, ma'am. 6 months.
Probably one.
Okay, so if the relapse is less than 6 months from trastuzumab or TDM1, then what do you want to do?
Then, ma'am, my option would be TDM1.
Okay. Okay, so Dr. Preetham, are you there? Do you want to also take this?
Yeah, first, you mentioned that she had a congestive cardiac failure. So first, I would like to have a baseline echocardiography whether cardiac functions are recovered. And if it has recovered, then obviously would plan. If the relapse is less than 6 months, then I would opt for TDM1. And if the relapse is more than 6 months, I would definitely look at the options of giving the trastuzumab, but changing the backbone of the chemotherapy. So that is what my option would be.
Yes. So if the patient has received dual targeted therapy, HER2 targeted therapy in the neoadjuvant setting and had a good response to that, then if the relapse is after 6 months, you can re-challenge with the dual HER2 with the taxane backbone, and at that time you can decide depending upon the neuropathy and all what backbone you want to choose. If supposing the relapse has happened less than 6 months and patient has also received TDM1 because there was a residual disease, that is something we will give to Dr. Ashwin.
If it is less than 6 months and a patient has exhausted both TDM1 as well, then maybe lepatinib with capecitabine I would consider.
Okay, so do you see any other drugs on the block for such a patient?
Tucatinib is not yet available, accessible. Even deruxtecan is not yet accessible.
Basically, the third line.
Those are approved for third line.
Or in other situation, change the chemotherapy with trastuzumab again.
Yes, exactly. The patient has responded very well in the neoadjuvant setting. You can change the backbone of chemotherapy and instigate trastuzumab again. So this is again a clipping from Cleopatra. Irrespective of the hormonal status, you add the dual anti-HER2 along with taxane. And then in this study, like Dr. Bowman rightly pointed out, they did not allow a hormonal maintenance, but as per other data from the PERTAIN study, hormonal maintenance can be added, and it is quite safe to be taken along with the dual HER2. So what are your treatment goals in patients who are first-line HER2 metastatic breast cancer? Let us go back to Dr. Shivam.
The first treatment goal is to reduce the tumor burden, because if they are symptomatic, I want to reduce the tumor burden as early as possible. Then quality of life, followed by overall survival and PFS.
Yes, and I suppose it should also be delaying the development of brain metastasis, because we saw that these patients are the ones who have a higher risk of developing brain metastasis. And as of now, this is the therapy that is going to delay development of brain metastasis. So I think the second question we have already discussed, the sequencing. It depends on the timing of the placement of therapy. If the patient is already treated, you keep the cutoff at 6 months as per consensus, and then try to instigate HER2 therapy as far as possible. And also, I think cardiac toxicity is something that is a lot of concern, but with dual HER2, that is not the case, that it would be increased. So coming to this patient back, this patient was started on again dual HER2 with taxanes. Somehow she was convinced that she will not develop cardiac failure, and this is a follow-up scan where there is a progression of the liver metastasis, and there are some bone mets. So the next step in management of this patient should involve discontinuing the current treatment and initiating which of the following treatments. So post pertuzumab, trastuzumab, what is your second line therapy in a metastatic HER2 patient? Dr. Nilesh.
So if resources available, definitely TDM1 will be the choice. If no TDM1 available, lapatinib capecitabine combination, and that is also not feasible, then the chemotherapy changing the backbone, something like gemcitabine with reinstitution of trastuzumab. Line of sequence depending on the resource and the patient.
Okay, and you would always want to place the patient in a clinical trial, supposing it is there. Yes. So now many drugs are coming, they have already reached India in the form of trials, but not yet in the clinic. But I mean, for an eligible patient, that is the best thing to happen, because the data with deruxtecan and tucatinib is really great. So how do you manage patients who are metastatic and they have brain mets? So what is your first line therapy in the clinic? This is a patient who is treatment naive. So Dr. Reshma?
Ma'am, if the patient is treatment naive, then can prefer a trastuzumab based regimen. And if trastuzumab has already been used, then TDM1. TDM1 has also had CNS response rates of 20 to 40%. And considering the TKIs, lapatinib, tucatinib are also having very good CNS penetration. So like you said, treatment naive, then definitely first choice is trastuzumab based.
Yeah, I agree with you. In the TDM1 trial, they did not include brain metastasis patients, but after the approval, there have been very many phase 2 reports of good intracranial responses in TDM1 patients. So that should be the first choice if possible. And if you have access to tucatinib with brain mets patient, that is the best, around 70% of intracranial responses with in combination with trastuzumab and capecitabine. So any take on leptomeningeal involvement, Dr. Ashwin? How do you treat patients who have brain mets and leptomeningeal involvement?
HER2 positive patients. I
Yes,
think
HER2 positive.
TDM1 would be a better option with
Okay.
brain and leptomeningeal. Intrathecal.
Anything new?
Intrathecal trastuzumab is showing some data, but never used it.
So there's a Patricia study in which they had given high dose of trastuzumab, that was 6 mg per kg weekly, along with pertuzumab in the standard doses. And that produced good responses in patients. The clinical benefit rate was up to 68%, though the responses by the RANO criteria were still in the range of 11 to 15% or so. So that is also an option. We would think of cardiac toxicity, but cardiac toxicity was not an issue even with those doses. It's a phase 2 study. Those are the most difficult patients to manage, and almost all these patients would ultimately end up with brain metastasis. Even trastuzumab deruxtecan has good data. So what are the drugs or that you are really excited about in HER2 positive breast cancer patients? So which drug are you most eagerly waiting? Dr. Chetan Deshmukh.
Yeah, definitely. Based on the data, I think trastuzumab deruxtecan seems to be the most exciting prospect. The data showed good responses in people who were heavily treated, people with brain mets. So that seems to be the.
So, and even with in low HER2 patients, the responses are really great.
Yes, that is, yeah, yes,
HER2
that is
1+
another
or,
thing.
yes, sir. So I think the treatment sequence that should be used is we should be exploring all the available molecules that are there in order to give the best response. And with this, I would like to thank all my panelists. If there are any questions for the panelists from the audience, we can take that. So thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Shivam, Dr. Preetham, Dr. Chetan, who are